Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon or this morning if you are based in the States, as I know some of our panelists are today. Thank you for joining. Today, we're going to be talking about unlocking revenue potential with smart marketing strategies. For those who don't know, my name is Eloise. I'm the editor of hospitality here at Boutique Hotel News, and we're a global trade publication covering the boutique, lifestyle, and luxury hotel sectors online. Our series sponsor of these webinars is Alliance. They're a guest experience platform, and we have a short video to play for you today. Further details about Alliance have been popped into the chat if you would like to learn more. So let's meet our speakers, and I am going to ask each to introduce themselves individually, and I'm going to move from left to right as per the PowerPoint slide. So Susie, let's come to you first.
Hello, hi, I'm Susie, Suzanne Williams. I work for Journey. We are based just outside London in England. It's a hospitality, technology and marketing agency. It's our driving ambition to improve the online experience for our guests through game-changing technology, beautifully crafted websites and performance-driving digital marketing.
Thank you. And Jennifer, coming to you next, please.
Hi, everyone. I am Jen Barnwell. I'm the president of Curator Hotel and Resort Collection. We're a newbie. We're still a little bit of a startup. We just had our 3rd anniversary, and we're a collection of specifically independent hotels and resorts. We have about 100 in our collection today, and we offer programs and services to our members to help with cost savings, increase profitability, increase valuation. And then also we've pivoted a little bit this year, and we're having more of a consumer focus and trying to drive direct bookings for our hotels.
Well, what a great time to have you on a webinar, Jen. Thank you. And Fausto, over to you next, please.
Hi, my name is Fausto. I'm in charge of partnerships in PriceLabs. For someone that doesn't know PriceLabs is a revenue management system. We focus more in boutique hotels, independent hotels, short-term rentals, service apartments, and co-living projects.
Thank you, Fausto. And last but not least, Dina.
Hello, I'm Dina Solomon. I'm the founder and managing director of Brandful. We specialize in branding and marketing services to a variety of sectors, but big part of our business is hospitality. My background has been in-house marketeer, so I very much understand the client side. We tend to offer 4 areas: marketing strategy, branding, communication, and digital marketing.
Thank you, Dina. Thanks to all. And I'll flag here that the LinkedIn profiles of all our speakers have been popped into the chat, and I actively encourage you all to connect and carry on this conversation long after the webinar has finished. Just to give you a very brief overview of how today's webinar is going to run, we'll spend around 45 minutes in discussion today, followed by some questions from the audience. So if you do have any questions, please submit these using the Q&A function, and I will get round to asking those as and when. And a webinar recording will be shared to everybody that has registered within a couple of days' time. Now, before we actually jump into the main meat, I suppose, of our conversation today, I always like to flag some context, and these are headlines taken from Boutique Hotel News and other media sources. And according to CWT's Global Travel Forecast, ADRs in 2024 are expected to rise to $174 in EMEA, with the average upscale hotel rate to reach $190, and the average mid-scale hotel rate will climb to $136 per night. And just to give you an idea of how boisterous or bolstered these revenues are, boutique hotel group Ferndale has recently reported record London revenues, almost doubling to 192.6 million. And with rates and revenues looking healthy, creative marketing campaigns to sustain and encourage new bookings have been launched. And I think one of the most notable is Ennismore's Disloyalty program, which offers discounted stays and experience across its full brand portfolio. On the next slide, we actually have Jen on the call today, but I've seen Curator has launched an initiative called Curative Experiences, which offers experience packages across its collection of independent lifestyle hotels. How are people selling these packages and experiences? Well, gifting, gift cards and vouchers. And just last week, Guestline has introduced a new gifting platform to allow hoteliers sell experiences at their properties, which increases upsell potential. And just to finish this section of the webinar, where we started talking about hotel rates, JLL said that hotels in New York are experiencing the strongest booking pace for the forward 6-month period since 2015, attributed to the crackdown on Airbnb supply. And earlier this year, we saw Airbnb launching a marketing campaign emphasizing why a short-term rental booking is better than a hotel, and we will be touching on this topic later on, so do stick around. So let's talk about unlocking revenue potential. Let's look at creative marketing strategies, and I want to kick off with a question to Susie, please. I'm wanting to learn more about changing guest behaviours. How are they booking? How are they searching? Where are they finding that inspiration? So can you please provide an overview of how travellers are engaging with brands online?
Yeah, sure. I think practically speaking, mobile search is still predominant. Here at Journey, we see 75% of guests searching through mobile devices. So I think that's a really important point for hoteliers to pick up on. To make reservations, to have good content, and to be able to find the information they need online, make sure that your mobile is optimized. I also think with the rise of remote and flexible working, when people are sitting in co-working spaces or on trains or on flights, that's where your dreaming phase happens for travel. When you're sitting, you've got the time, you want to see what is out there, what brands are really standing out. You're doing it on your mobile devices, so check that mobile experience. I think social media continues apace. I think Hootsuite just cited the trend for 2024, which actually surprised me quite a lot, and that was the rise of text-only posts. X has got 650 million users, so our hotel is really capitalising on X and the rise of apps like Threads, two areas that we probably don't consider as much as we should, given that our content marketing tends to look towards visuals. So I thought that was just an interesting point. 26% of Gen Z users use TikTok to find their news, So I guess what I'd say is make sure you are where your guests are hanging out and communicate them in the way that they want to be spoken to.
I held a webinar, it may have been earlier this year, it may have even been next year. Next year, wow, last year. But it was looking at TikTok and how hoteliers are utilizing and leveraging that platform. Do you think it's here to stay, Susie? Would you say that this is a viable platform for hoteliers to be exploring?
Yes, for sure. I think it's where your audience hang out, and if that's who you want to engage with, then you have to be there. I think that what we'll see is social platforms start to evolve into search platforms. That's a trend that I think will grab hold. Maybe not next year, maybe towards the end of next year, going into the future years, but search platforms and social media go hand in hand. And if that's where your audience are, I expect to see some improvements from platforms to do that.
I know anecdotally, there's a lot of my friends, if we're looking for a new restaurant to go and dine in, their go-to is, let's see what's trending on TikTok. Let's see what's hip and what's happening. So I know anecdotally that my friends are exploring the use of social media as a source of inspiration. It would be interesting to see how that platform does evolve and, as you mentioned, become more of that search tool. Dina, let's bring you in here. How can brands then best take advantage of these changing behaviours and start to increase that conversion and ultimately loyalty?
I think one of the things that brands need to be very aware of and consistent in being clear on what they stand for, what their brand evokes, their personality, their distinct character. A lot of brands talk about functional aspects, the great beds, the great location, which is absolutely fundamental. But when I engage with a brand on an emotional level, then it gets into this loyalty aspect. It becomes a deeper connection. You become more attuned to what your guests want. And that's something some hotels are a bit more risk averse. They want to appeal to everybody. And if you want to appeal to everybody, you will be a bit vanilla, which will make you a commodity, and then you will end up competing on price. So one of the reasons I called my consultancy Brandful, because brand is absolutely fundamental to everything you do. So having this clarity on who you are, your point of view, is fundamental and is crucial to your ability to engage with your audience. And once this is clear, everything else will fall into place naturally and more easily. Of course, talking on social media, being present across the different platforms is crucial. Having a content calendar in advance, making sure that you've got this planned ahead content, creating content that is engaging, but also be flexible so that you could respond to what's trending, what's on at the moment, so that you're staying relevant. Another thing is taking advantage of technology platforms. You don't have to have a specialist in TikTok and a specialist in Instagram. And there's technology platforms at the moment where you can create content in advance and it will adapt it to the different platforms, and then you can push it out to the different platforms. Something like HubPost, for example, is a great platform that allows people to do that. Something like Canva will allow you to create content that looks very professional, and you don't have to be a graphic designer to do it. So there is a lot of tools out there that will enable you to create engaging content and push it out in a seamless way. And also make sure you analyze what you have pushed out there, because you will test and learn, and you will quickly learn what content engages your audience. To give you an example, a lot of times we push content about the great rooms and the neighborhoods, which is all great. But when we talk about people in our posts, it tends to get much more engagement. People want to see people. So that's one of the things that you will quickly learn if you look at your data and you analyze the content you push out there.
Can I ask, admittedly, most of this conversation today will focus on the B2C and the consumer-facing marketing efforts, but how important is it for hotels to be present on the B2B platforms as well, and start building those, client corporate partnerships?
I think, there was a statistic that says 60% of consumers will check you on multiple platforms before they engage with you. That's one reason to be present on as many platforms as you can, but maybe tailor the content a little bit. So a lot of hotels, hospitality in general, particularly in the post-pandemic, has been struggling with shortages of staff. That's one a great example. So being present on LinkedIn and on Instagram, talking about people, talking about the great culture you create internally, how you treat your own team and their own personality, who you're recruiting, will not just appeal to guests, but will also allow you to attract and retain your own team and create a talent pool that allows you to create those great guest experiences and moments that people connect with and make it memorable.
I think that's a great point, actually. And I've even just as a personal user of LinkedIn noticed how personalized it is becoming. Traditionally a very corporate B2B platform, but there are now more personal posts being shared. I do wonder how that platform itself is going to evolve as a potential marketing platform for companies.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the great thing is that something like LinkedIn will give you recommendations on what type of content you should be posting. Mm-hmm. So the platforms are becoming more clever and the algorithms are learning. So it will give you direction as well. It will help you create the right engaging content.
Mm-hmm. Dina, whilst we're with you, do you help owners launch boutique hotels, particularly small family-owned properties in London? Is this something that you are able to support with?
Yes, I mean, one of the things I've done even before being a consultant was being in-house, and a proud moment in my career was creating and launching a boutique hotel brand in London, and which is now expanded across the nation in the UK. But I also was a brand director for an international boutique brand.
Brilliant.
So yes, in summary, yes.
Yes. Okay. So Yusuf Ali, Dina, yes, she can help. Dina's LinkedIn profiles, in fact, all the LinkedIn profiles of our speakers are in the chat. So definitely connect with Dina, and you can follow up there. Jen, let's look at digital marketing tools. As Susie mentioned, 75% of consumers are now looking on their mobile. So we're in a very increasingly digital world. What digital marketing tools can hoteliers use to boost visibility and drive that revenue growth?
Yeah, thank you. And Susie and Dina, I love what you've said so far. In terms of visibility, or I would say awareness, and revenue growth can certainly be achieved through digital marketing strategies. The first obviously feeds into the second. The digital marketing tools we're employing at Curator are going to be familiar to everybody. But the differentiator is really going to be in the execution. So I'd start with website. We just a few months ago did a refresh and a relaunch. I mean, you need to have a great website with analytics that you're paying attention to so that you can see how visitors are getting to you and where they spend their time on your site and where they don't. Exactly how your website should look and function, is debatable and, open for conversation depending on exactly what your goals are, either for your brand or your specific property. But just like Susie said, everyone should really keep in mind travelers are doing a lot of searching when they're considering travel because they can, on mobile, through social, even at work on your desktop when you have a few extra minutes or you're, eating lunch at your desk. So you need to have content for them to see, to digest, that's both basic and informative, but also interesting and compelling. The next thing I would refer to is we do a series of what we call cross-promotional email campaigns. So engage with your past guests with relevant, interesting, informational messages. Try not to be generic, in your content or just send them out to kind of check a box because everyone thinks, you should send emails to your database. With the right CRM, you can send very targeted messages to different subsets of your database and be more sophisticated with your strategies. And ultimately, of course, get them to your website to book. We've launched a whole series of display ads. I mean, these are specifically for visibility and awareness. You know, full transparency, they tend to have a pretty high bounce rate. Everybody knows that, but you kind of are hopeful for the billboard effect. And there are, you know, in terms of if you get a good volume, even though that bounce rate is high, you still are sending, you know, quite a few people to your website to see what you have going on. We've chosen to highlight experiences with our display ads, and thank you for referencing that headline earlier, Eloise. We've done kind of what we thought are kind of pretty cool line drawing animations, and they introduce some of the experiences that are available at our hotels and resorts, and then tie it back to that hotel or resort, you know, and drive people to our website. We're doing a whole lot of PPC keyword buys, you know, as a collection, or you could say a brand. We're focused on top of funnel for our PPC. So top of funnel, mid funnel, more generic terms about boutique and independent hotels in certain geographical areas and about our experiences. Whereas individual hotels and resorts would be much more focused with very specific words that they're buying. So we're not ending up buying any of the same keywords in that space. Social accounts that have already been mentioned, you have to have a presence on social accounts with good content. We are also adding ad buys onto that. Travelers look for, you know, and they engage with travel content on social media. You could, you know, I've seen this very recently, you know, just scrolling through Instagram on my personal account, but, you know, you're seeing posts that are two different accounts that have paired up together to either create content or share content because somehow they're in the same space, or maybe, you know, have the same kind of people interested in what they're doing. You could work with influencers. That's also somewhat debatable. We're of the opinion that we don't pay influencers, but of course, if we find someone that we think can bring awareness to us that's in the travel space, you know, we could do a trade, you know, where they stay at the hotel, you know, and get some perks while they're there, and in exchange for a whole lot of content that they're going to provide for us. We've also done contests with companies that are kind of a good partnership for us, like luggage companies and some of the vendor relationships that we have, and that has helped us grow our follower base. And then just a few other things, you know, video content is very important, especially short videos on your social media. Again, I'm of the opinion that you want content that's approachable, like not too slick, you know, and brand forward, real people, real videos, user generated content. We repurpose that all the time because it's mostly, you know, real and authentic. The thing we haven't done yet, it really depends on budget, but of course you can advertise, you know, on all the streaming services and, you know, catch a whole bigger audience. That tends to be kind of, based on what I've seen, much more for the big brands, you know, that have the big budgets. But that's something we had thought about, but you have to have kind of a really gigantic budget to do those kind of things.
I definitely think on the user generated content point that it adds credibility to your brand. I think leaning on what's already out there helps to build that trust, and more importantly, that travelers now would probably be able to see through inauthentic or messages or communications that maybe don't truly reflect who you are and what you do. So I would imagine it's quite a fine line to balance. How do you really create that authentic? And I suppose user generated content is a quick win, so to speak.
Oh, for sure. And you know, you should spend some time on it. It's actually not that hard. I mean, most people that are in the social space and posting content, you know, you reach out to them, they're more than happy to have their content repurposed and, you know, given the credit. And we do spend a fair amount of time searching for that. First of all, you're going to make a connection with someone who's been at your property or properties. And then it's a real person that had an experience there. and liked it so much in one sense or another that they took the time to post about it.
Mm-hmm. Can I stay with you for this next question, Jen? And in fact, I might even bring the other three speakers on for this, because it's always great to understand examples of innovative marketing strategies, maybe something that you've seen over the last month or so that's really stayed front of mind. Jen, do you have any examples of creative marketing campaigns that you've seen?
Yeah, I'm smiling because I mean, it ended up being kind of funny. I mean, it's not super new, but the campaigns, I think it is from Hilton, right? Where they're just like going right at the short-term rental market. I mean, those, again, it's a big brand that has a big budget. So I see it, you know, from time to time when I'm actually watching something and letting the commercials run, right? But I just remember kind of seeing it for the first time and being like, whoa, they are like really going right at it without saying Airbnb, but everyone knows what they're saying, right? And selfishly, I'm in the hotel and resort space only, and I'm like a champion hotels and resorts. So it kind of like made me, you know, laugh a little bit. And I was like, okay, like this is, you know, kind of interesting. So that actually really resonated with me. And, you know, even, you know, my family and friends who aren't in the industry kind of took notice of that as well. So that's the one thing that sticks in my mind, but I'm sure the other panelists have other good examples too.
Yeah, if anybody has any examples, even sitting maybe outside of the industry. Dina, I can see.
Yes, yes, sure. Because I was thinking marketing is all about creating awareness and then driving the guest or the customer through the funnel from awareness to consideration to finally converting and becoming a customer. And we always talk in marketing about the always on and then the campaigns. So always on is like those constant moments where you talk about your brand in an authentic way, and then the campaigns when you go hard, like with a big message, and then it's got a start and an end. And one example from outside of the industry I was looking at is IKEA. So a very different sector, but IKEA has created their own podcast, and their podcast basically they transformed their catalog, this big, huge catalog every year that they printed, into an audio and visual platform. So you can visually look or listen to a podcast about IKEA's solving everyday problems at home. So I'm thinking from a hotel perspective, there is certainly an opportunity to create an always on opportunity to talk about your brand or things that are relevant to your brand. So if you're a brand that is all about connecting your guests to the local neighborhood, there is tons that you can talk about. You can invite people from the local area, the local eateries, music venues, and through that platform, you can create a whole experience and make yourself much more appealing than talking about the mattress in the bedroom. So it becomes a much more holistic experience through something like a podcast channel, and it's varied. So that is one example. There are also, as Jen and Susie mentioned, social media and video content. You can also, in the design of your hotel, you can create those Instagrammable moments. So without telling your guests to talk about you, you can prompt them through the design so that they would take a selfie and post about it. So you don't have to do anything apart from having the thinking in advance. And a lot of people do it even in the bathroom, something that is surprising delights. And you find it all over social media because it's different. So this is one example. I've got plenty more, but I don't want to take too much time from the other speakers.
Thank you, Dina. Fausto, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I have one that is not really a campaign. It's more like a marketing strategy. But before I was working in Price Labs, I worked in a company that had a little bit of mixed of real estate investment, but also like medium portfolio of a mix of short-term rentals, boutique hotels, and apart hotels. But in reality, they were selling these projects, right? It was the main business was selling the project. Then it was more an asset management, the operation. But this was in spite the owners were from the United States. The project was in Latin America. And a big part of the portfolio was in Colombia. And we started noticing that the product was very good, but sometimes was hard to sell because people didn't know what to visit or why to visit the destination. And this was some years ago. I think Airbnb was starting, something like that. And so a lot of direct bookings, right? The majority of the bookings were direct bookings. And then someone had a brilliant idea, in my opinion, that one of the partners was had a little bit of a marketing background and video. So he dedicated to be the full-time vlogger for the company. So his only job was traveling by a motorbike in Colombia, going to destinations, and he had a drone, and doing YouTube videos, promoting the destination. Because we noticed, I was a revenue manager at the company, and we noticed that the product was not selling. The product was good. The destination was not known enough to sell. So what we tried to do is, let's try to sell the destination. And he started to get a big, like the public started to grow. And in the mix of it, we started to grow the destination, but also selling the investment projects, right? So we started to get both guests as investors throughout YouTube. And YouTube video, of course, not YouTube, it was then shared in Facebook, Instagram, all of that. But with this content, we started to get guests and investors for the business. And I think it was a brilliant idea. And this was like 8 or 9 years ago. It was something that not a lot of people was crazy enough to do, I think. But I think it was a brilliant idea. And the results were very good.
I mean, to be out on a motorbike with a drone driving around Colombia, if that was my job, I think I'd be pretty happy. Fausto, let's stick with you for a moment here, because I know you have a lot of experience within the short-term rental space. And I think there's a lot of upselling, cross-selling opportunities to be had within the short-term rental space when you are booking your reservation and looking at that end-to-end customer journey. So with that in mind, how can hoteliers maximize their revenue opportunities?
So I will share my point of view that is a little bit more focused on revenue management than marketing, because it's my background.
Absolutely.
So I think when I talk with some independent hotels, I think the main one, and it seems very basic, but the main one is still like dynamic pricing. There's still a lot that it's not using any kind of yield management, dynamic pricing. And when we talk about dynamic pricing, it's not only change rates, it's change it based on market data. And so if you are doing it, it means that you also have a tool for market data. So you can have a revenue management system that has all, if you want to do it a little bit more manual, but you should use market data to optimize your results. It's still very basic. It's something that has been like everyone repeats itself in the last 10 years or 15 years. But I still feel that that a lot of independent hotels don't use it. And I can tell in the short-term rental world, it's exactly the same. If you go to the UK market, maybe 9, 10, 11% is a dynamic pricing tool. The rest don't. Of course, this is very concentrated in the main cities like London, etc. Rural areas, not as much. But I still think that it's step number one. Use dynamic pricing and market data. So don't based on intuition, no, based on data. Then I still think there's a lot of things to do in cross-selling and upselling. So not the traditional way. Like, I think we shouldn't look at the past to solve our wishes in the future. Like, we should lose a little bit, like, don't be afraid to do something that you think that no one is doing. Maybe someone is doing it, but you don't know. I think the big hotels are in a worse position to do something new than you. So if you are an independent hotel, it's easier to implement than if you have a very heavy legacy and a lot of process that you cannot make a big change because it's complicated. Like, if you are an independent hotel, you can test it, you can do it. Don't try to get someone to upgrade in a price that is not good for them. Like, just try to create some strategies that will add value for the guest and value to you. A lot of times people try to do things on the price, they forget about the people. At the end, if you can make that your people create value, you can sell it a little bit more expensive through your employees, through your people. So it's also, at least in a revenue management perspective, it's also a strategy, right? Use your staff. If they are happy, if they are good, if they will add value to your operation. But I will say, like, cross-selling and upselling, you can work a little bit on it. Also collaborations and partnerships. Last week, I talked with a client of ours that has like 3 independent hotels, all very small, but very high-end, like 15 rooms, 20-something rooms, but very high-end. And they are in a very seasonal market, but they have like their rooms in like 18th century or 19th century houses, renovated, all of these very historical areas. And in low season, they have a lot of collaborations and partnerships, for example, for photos, like product photos, bed linen brands, a lot of companies, they rent their space to do photos. And because they don't have guests, they have a lot of partnerships, and they just rent it per day or 2 days or 3 days. And the team stays there, they do the photos, and they can get an extra revenue on this. Of course, if you are in a place that you have guests all year round, this is not maybe good for you. But this is an example how a collaboration in a very seasonal market can get you an extra revenue. I also think that partnering with local business and attraction, try to sell it a package that include both accommodation and experience. It's almost mandatory if you are an independent hotel. And to tell the truth, short-term rentals do this very well in certain locations. And so they are one step ahead if you are not doing it, because they need it. They don't have a building to do something, so they need these collaborations to do something. And more, there's short-term rental companies, for example, that also own, I don't know, boat cruise company, and they also invest in something that does tours. So at the end, it's creating like a lot of collaborations inside the same company, and I think independent hotels have to do this as well. Of course, I think I have only 4 things that I think that are the most the challenge that they will face. It's the main one is always like resource constraints, right? Then an independent hotel usually say, I don't have time, I don't have staff, I cannot do it. Or budgets, like a big hotel has a lot of budget, sometimes independent hotels. So try to be creative. Sometimes it's not really need a big budget, just start to do. We did a test. I did a test, like we did kind of a poll in a webinar where I asked how many of the persons that were at the webinar, hotel owners, etc., were not selling the nights from Sunday to Monday in that specific market. And a lot of them said, like, I think it was 60-something% said that they struggled to sell that night in that specific market. And we did another question saying, how many of you give a discount for that night? And only like 15%. So if you have 60-something% saying, I cannot sell Sundays to Mondays, why don't you offer 50% discount? If you do an extension, for example. Not for a new booking, but for an extension. You don't need a new client in-house, it's already there, etc. So something like that. I think there's still a lot of things that you can do without having to invest money or a lot of time on it. Then it's the competition against chains. I think sometimes, at least from a revenue management point of view, independent hotels have a struggle they don't know if they should copy the big hotels or if they should differentiate themselves. I think they should differentiate themselves, but sometimes they try to copy what they're doing. So it's a little bit on that. And balancing a little bit the OTA dependency. I think that's like the channel management, the distribution part of independent hotels sometimes, you should improve it a lot. Like you're still very dependent on 1 or 2, 3 main OTAs. You don't have direct bookings. You don't work the loyalty of your clients. They arrive. I know sometimes they don't even confirm if the email they have is correct. So I think you should work a little bit. The client is yours. You already paid your commission to the OTA. Now work your client. Like he cannot come to your hotel again through the same OTA. Like it has to be yours. So I think this is my input on this.
Thank you, Fausto. And in fact, that tees up quite nicely with my next question to Susie, which is exploring, I suppose, how the role of the revenue manager is changing with the deployment of AI that is now creeping in, and also maybe how this can help to drive those direct bookings. So, Susie, how can independent hoteliers make use of AI in their revenue strategy?
It's one of those terms that's actually quite difficult to quantify when it comes to how hoteliers should utilise it in their business. It's a broad term, it's machine learning, it's data analysis, it's slicing and dicing, it's understanding your market. So there's a lot of platforms out there that are already utilising AI very well, especially in the revenue management space. I always caveat any conversation I have, and I have a lot of conversations about AI and hospitality, with the role of a revenue manager or a commercial director in a hotel really has to be about setting the goals and the intentions for your business. So be really crystal clear about what you want those goals to be. Do you want to have 50, 60, 70% direct business versus 30% indirect? How do you go about achieving that? And setting that commercial intention, I think, is absolutely paramount. I think what's quite interesting about revenue management systems, especially in independent hotels, is that so few actually have adopted revenue management systems as part of their pricing revenue management process. It's absolutely the best investment an independent hotel can make. An algorithm, an artificial intelligence algorithm, will analyse data and predict future demand far faster than a person can, allowing that person to think clearly about their marketing goals, their pricing goals, and setting that commercial intention. So optimised channel management is another thing, that when you're presenting your hotel rooms online on the right channels, feeding into that distribution strategy that should be set by that commercial intention. It will help enable dynamic pricing strategies that Fausto alluded to. So if your hotel still has midweek weekend rates, and a lot of independent hotels still think about their demand in those terms, well, how about we create the demand? How about the teams on property actually think about how they're going to create that demand and then manage it, as opposed to allowing the market to dictate, well, Monday to Thursday, I can only achieve this rate. Well, if you're creating demand and driving the audience to you, then you can drive that rate occupancy up. And I think RMS systems can help you do that by freeing up the time to allow the teams to concentrate on demand generation, which is everybody's job in the hotel, front facing, back of house, everyone. So know and understand your business goals, and then you want to drive more direct business, which all hotels do want to do. And there's very much a hot topic about that net revenue, you know, what it genuinely costs to bring the booking through the door, which is very different to bringing the guest and the lifetime value of that guest. So set your goals. You want to shift 10% from booking.com. How do you go about doing that? Well, first things first, you want to bring them to your website. So you have to invest in that. You have to Jen's point about digital marketing, know where your audience are, how to attract them, and then go about investing in reaching them, engage them and get them to that website, but make sure that that online journey is absolutely crystal clear. There's a path to purchase. I think that hotels are really brilliant at presenting experiences, as they should be, but do not forget underneath that you have got to get that guest to purchase. So the path has to be absolutely crystal clear, and the customer journey leading you to that. I think one of the big things about online, booking.com and the OTAs, is the commodity sales. You know, you go to booking.com or Expedia and you're just buying a hotel bedroom, all good. You can't book your restaurant, your spa, golf. You can't do any of those things online. So that's where the challenger platforms come in, which we obviously are the champions of that at One Journey. You're offering that online experience. So I think ultimately set clear intentions for your guests, make sure that there's a clear path to purchase, and make sure your tech stack is allowing a full experiential path for your guest.
May I ask, you mentioned about investment there, Susie, about investing in I think it was specifically around your digital marketing strategy, and just so that we can clarify what is meant by investment, do you mean a monetary investment? I know, for example, you listed a few sort of technology platforms that would be worthwhile making sure robust and very much involved in that tech stack, or is this an investment in terms of time and effort and resource in making sure that teams are there and ready and prepared and following through?
I think it's all of those things. I think that when you take that intention to shift business from an indirect channel to a direct, you first of all have to understand what stuff is, and is that the right thing to do for your business? So it's that distribution mix, the Couch point earlier. You have to make sure that it's cost effective. So, and the second thing is investment in technology. Now, that's when I think it gets quite tricky, because the time investment needed from a resource perspective then feeds into that, because you have to bring all those platforms together. They have to be seamless, and there's a lot of nuances in terms of how those systems work together. So there's investment there. But in this context, I'm talking about investing in digital marketing, making sure that you understand the fantastic impact digital marketing and paid advertising can have on your direct channel as a whole. And that is online, through your website, on the phone, which is still, people still pick up the phone for hotels, as the hoteliers watching will know, and the email. So how do you reach and convert that business? I think you have to consider that as part of the overall direct mix.
Thanks, Susie. Jen, we've talked a lot about data and understanding data, right? Either sort of within your hotel, looking at your website, looking at all the channels that you're present on, and even sort of looking at, you know, maybe market data. I want to ask you, how essential is it to be monitoring this data when you are looking at your pricing and revenue strategy, and what key metrics should hoteliers be paying attention to and measuring?
Yeah, first, I will try not to be repetitive, because I really love a lot of what Fausto and Susie were saying, and I have a lot of those same thoughts. But in terms of data, I mean, it's of the utmost importance, you know, specifically the right data. It's invaluable. It should drive revenue management decisions. And like Susie was saying, there are great revenue management platforms out there. We partner with one of them at Curator. But I'm still of the opinion you definitely need, you know, a human involved. In terms of kind of the sector we're in with full service independent hotels and resorts, I'm not recommending a system that's like fully automated and just can do everything for you now. I think you need a human's involvement. And in terms of data, it's really important to understand demand. So where is the demand for your property coming from by day, by week, by month? You know, how seasonal is it? You know, if you're in a big city, track all of the conventions, you know, and citywides that may or may not be coming, any big events. I mean, we had heard a comment that the Taylor Swift concerts in the US were like a Super Bowl every time she came to that city, and it's absolutely accurate. So you really got to keep track of what's going on in your market. Make sure that data is, you know, in your system. Some of the systems really only look at historical, so you really got to be very cognizant about making sure any current and future data is in your system as well, and helping you decide on your pricing decisions. Typically, you always want to know, and again, there's systems out there that do all this reporting for you, and you can capture it and put it into your revenue management system. But you can see where you stack up pricing wise versus what you think your competitors are. You know, in most instances, you want to see where you are versus a competitive set. And sometimes, which is perfectly fine, you may be a property where you really don't care, you know, where everyone else is pricing. You have goals and strategies in mind to get what you think your property is worth. But you still kind of, you know, want to see where other people are in the market. I think, and I'm sorry to be repetitive, but segmentation is so important. Channel mix. The one comment I will add is that it's extremely important to understand what each channel costs you. So if someone books through an OTA, I mean, if you add all that in there, not only the commission that goes back to the OTA, but if you did any travel ads or you did some kind of accelerator, I mean, you could be paying as an independent hotel that do not get the deals that the big brands get. You could be paying 25 to 30% off the top to all the OTAs versus someone who books direct on your website versus travel agents. You know, if you have an in-house group sales function or you have a third-party group sales function, your revenue team should really understand exactly how much each of those bookings cost you so that they can prioritize their time to try to bring in business in the lowest cost channels so that the property can be as profitable as possible. The other thing I'll say that, you know, it's not like numbers, but it's so critical to understand why your guests are choosing to stay with you. Get as much of that data as you can. If someone came through an OTA, like Fausto said, when they check in, you got to get their email address and all their information and market to them directly. Give them on the spot, you know, a 20% promo to book direct next time. Anything you can do to fully understand why your guests are staying with you and make that information accessible and actionable. I think those kind of things are very important in revenue management strategy.
Thanks, Jen. A colleague of mine recently joked around that Taylor Swift seems to be single-handedly upholding the hospitality industry at the moment. I mean, what she has achieved for not only herself, but actually the sector has been utterly phenomenal.
I mean, if you add together Taylor Swift and Beyonce and Pink, like the tours they did in the US this year, it's just unbelievable. Yeah.
I want to jump to Fausto for my next question, actually, because it is talking about paying attention to what's happening outside of the four walls of your property. And Fausto, do you think that hotels should be paying closer attention to short-term rental demand data when looking at forecasting rates, occupancies, etc.?
Yes, the short answer, yes. I think there's still a lot. I think, and talking about general things is very dangerous, right? Because there's, but in general, I think that hotels have the wrong idea about short-term rentals. I think in certain aspects, short-term rentals are even in terms of a part of the technology. Short-term rentals are adapting it much faster than hotels. For example, what Jennifer was talking, it's very common for a 100 apartment, like property manager with 100 units. Almost all of them use dynamic pricing tools, use market data based on demand, seeing future data. And if you go to the hotel side, it's still the 10 competitors, 10 comp sets. Let's see how they are doing, what's the price they have listed, and a little bit. So it's not in something. I think short-term rentals are one step ahead in terms of adopting technology. On the other side, I think short-term rentals have a wrong idea about hotels as well, because they should learn some things with hotels as well. In terms of processes, in terms of hotels are ahead as well. So there's a kind of a wrong idea on both sides in certain things. But in terms of competition, I think that at least independent hotels, unless, as Jennifer mentioned, you don't care about your competitor doing your own thing and your goals and you just don't care, the rest of it mainly, and I think it doesn't matter if you're urban or rural areas, everywhere, you should be checking the short-term rentals. And I will tell you why, because first, you can get one KPI that you can from hotels, that is occupancy. If you use market data tools, because the short-term rentals, usually it's only one calendar for one property. If we talk about certain OTAs, a revenue management system can check the occupancy in the market, so it can check the demand. If you go to hotels, yeah, you cannot really trust in the occupancy data for the future. I'm looking for the future. A lot of multi-units, you can close, open segments, etc. So not on that. So I think if I was managing an independent hotel, I will check short-term rentals, particularly through platforms like Airbnb and Vrbo, but Vrbo is not as strong in Europe, but Airbnb. to check changing travel trends. I think the travel trends you notice it's very fast to notice a travel trend in short-term rental. It's much harder in hotels. You can see it, but usually you have to look at past data, not future data for hotels. In the short-term rentals, I think you can notice very, very faster. Then for competitive benchmarking, there's a lot of short-term rentals now that operate like hotels or apart hotels. So they are really a competitive in the market. Local events and seasonal demand, usually, if you know a concept of short-term rentals that are professional, and this is important, that are professional, they are very, very, very local. They live about this local knowledge because they don't have a full building, they don't have experience, it's the local knowledge. Usually they are faster to adapt to local events, to changes on the demand in the market, etc. But you need to be able to filter this concept. And the last one, this one is very, very different from the hotels. That is, short-term rentals are much more flexible in their pricing strategy. So you might see that if they are competing with you, they might make some decisions in terms of pricing and in terms of their strategy that is a little bit more flexible, not to say a little bit, sometimes a little bit crazy, compared to hotels. That hotels have a little bit more a rule to follow, a process, a goal, everything much preferred. In short-term rental, I can give you a real life example for people to understand what we're talking about. I know a company that had in the same market 500 apartments, between apartments and homes, and because their goal was not, probably, I don't know, I didn't work there, but looking at the data, their goal was not to maybe be profitable that year. Their goal was to do some other thing. They had another goal. They just dropped down prices in 50% in their market. With 500 apartments in a market that has maybe 5,000 listings, you have 10% of the market, and then and I'm saying locally, right? And if you just drop down prices in 50%, you can. If they were an hotel, they will not do this. They only could do this because they had a much more flexible operation as well, right? They knew that the quality was going down. They knew that the reviews were not being good. They knew that experience was going to be worse, but maybe they didn't care. So this is bad, but if they are competing with you, you have to understand why you might see your demand going down in that market, for example.
Thank you, Fausto. And I just want to finish with a final question to Dina, because Fausto was talking about key learnings, what hotels can learn from short-term rentals and vice versa. And Dina, final words of advice. What can hoteliers learn from the marketing campaigns and the revenue strategies of other brands and organizations that actually sit outside of hospitality? What can we learn from them and draw inspiration from?
I think one thing is know who you are and don't be afraid to communicate a point of view that is unique to yourself, so you can stand out. To Fausto's point, don't copy everybody, because then you will end up being a commodity and you will compete on price. So that is one thing. Be clear on who you are and be bold about communicating that. I think to everybody's point, direct booking, of course, is the goal, and don't underestimate the simple things, as in collecting the database and building that up. Email marketing is a fantastic tool, and it's the cheapest cost of acquisition, and it's the most engaged audience. So make sure you build that connection, build your database, and market through your own channels constantly. Be always on, be present. So find a way, find platforms where you can create those moments, that whether it's user-generated content, whether it's podcasts, so that you always have an opportunity to connect with your audience via different ways, not just on the direct booking, but building that awareness and building that brand so that you're always top of mind. And then you will find that the conversion is much easier. And then the last thing is look for the technology and platforms that are out there that will help you to create the right content and market to your audience in a much more efficient and cost-effective ways. And that's
Thank
me.
you. Thank you, Dina. Some great advice to end today's webinar on, and thank you to Fausto, Jen, and Susie as well for your insights. We've actually had a comment from the audience. Great webinar, guys. Look forward to the next. So round of applause all round. We have hit our allotted hour, so I just have some closing slides to run through before we finish off today. Our final webinar of the year is taking place in 2 weeks' time. Effectively, what's going to happen in this webinar is that I will be presenting my 5 key hotel trends that I expect to shape the industry next year. The format will effectively follow a short Q&A on those 5 trends with 5 experts. So we would absolutely love to see you there. The link to register has been popped into the chat. And after we've enjoyed our Christmas break, we are back mid-January on the 22nd and 23rd for our in-person event called Recharge that's being held at the Room 2 Hotel in Belfast, the world's first net zero carbon property. And we would absolutely love to see you there. It's a great opportunity to actually see a net zero carbon property in action. Once again, tickets are live and you can purchase those via the link in the chat. And if you're interested in working with us, either across our webinars or indeed our in-person events, please get in touch with my colleagues Rav or Piers. Their details are up on your screens. So all that's left for me to do today is to say thank you. Thanks Dina, Fausto, Jen and Susie for your insights. Thank you to Alliance for sponsoring. I will see you all in 2 weeks' time for the Trends webinar, but otherwise, thank you very much all, and I will see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Hello, we are International Hospitality Media, or IHM for short. IHM is the #1 brand to engage with decision makers in hospitality and real estate. Our 4 multimedia brands lead their respective sectors with breaking news, comments, trends and opinion across a variety of multimedia solutions. We provide an inspirational community to connect people through world-class events, webinars, podcasts, award schemes and much more. But let us share our story of who we are and what we do. Over 10 years ago, Piers & George had a light bulb moment to provide expert opinion, comments and low-cost digital content. And so they went on a journey over the past decade, creating media platforms to serve the hospitality and real estate industries. We now have an engaged audience with a reach of over 60,000 monthly visitors across our website, 48,000 of our email database across all the sectors, and over 67,000 across our social channels. Everything we do believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. We make things simple and very easy to work with us. And we're a friendly bunch too. We offer creative solutions to help you achieve your business goals. Read, watch, listen, meet with IHM. Contact us for a chat today. Just look at some of the brands we have worked with recently.